The car spun sideways on the ice before Daniel could even react. Claire screamed and grabbed the wheel, but it was too late. The back tires lost their grip completely, and the vehicle slid off the narrow mountain road into a wall of snow. Metal groaned. Snow sprayed across the windshield. Then everything went still. For a moment, neither of them said a word. The engine had stopped. Wind howled outside, rattling the windows like something was trying to get in. "Are you hurt?" Daniel asked, turning to look at Claire. Her hands were shaking on the wheel, knuckles pale. "I don't think so," she said. "But we're stuck. Really stuck." Daniel opened his door and the cold hit him instantly, sharp and biting, like stepping into a freezer with no walls. Snow was falling fast, thick flakes swirling in every direction. He could barely see past the hood of the car. They had left the city that morning under a clear sky. Claire, his girlfriend Megan's mother, had asked him to join her for a quiet weekend trip to her family's old cabin in the mountains. Megan couldn't come because of work, but she had encouraged Daniel to go anyway. "You two should get to know each other better," Megan had said, smiling. "She likes you. Trust me." Daniel liked Claire too. She was warm, funny, and easy to talk to. Nothing like the intimidating mother-in-law figure he had worried about meeting. The drive up had been pleasant, filled with stories about Megan as a child, family trips, and old memories from a simpler time. Neither of them had checked the weather update that came out just after they left. By the time they noticed the sky changing, it was already too late to turn back safely. Now, standing outside the car in the freezing wind, Daniel realized how serious the situation had become. "We can't stay out here," Claire said, stepping out beside him, wrapping her coat tighter around herself. "We need to find shelter, now." "Do you have any signal?" Daniel asked, pulling out his phone. The screen showed no bars, just a small icon indicating no service. Claire checked hers too. Same result. "Nothing," she said. "We're too far from any towers up here." The wind picked up, howling louder, pushing snow sideways in sheets. Visibility was dropping fast. Daniel could feel the cold seeping through his jacket already, crawling into his bones. "There's an old ranger station," Claire said suddenly, her eyes scanning the white blur around them. "My father used to bring us here when I was a kid. It should be close. Maybe a 15-minute walk if I remember correctly." "Should be," Daniel repeated, raising an eyebrow. "It's our best option," Claire said firmly. "We can't stay by the car. If the storm gets worse, we could freeze." Daniel nodded, understanding the urgency in her voice. He grabbed a small bag from the back seat, filled with a flashlight, some snacks, and a first aid kit Claire always kept for road trips. It wasn't much, but it was something. They started walking, moving carefully through the deepening snow. Each step felt heavier than the last, the cold gripping their legs, slowing them down. The wind bit into their skin, forcing them to squint just to see a few feet ahead. "Stay close to me," Claire said, raising her voice over the wind. "If we get separated out here, it will be very hard to find each other again." Daniel nodded and stayed by her side, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and adrenaline. He had never experienced anything like this before, a storm so powerful it could swallow the world whole. Minutes passed like hours. The trees around them blurred into shapes and shadows, barely visible through the snow. Daniel's hands were growing numb despite his gloves, and his face felt raw from the wind. "There," Claire said suddenly, pointing ahead. Through the white haze, a small wooden structure came into view, half covered in snow, but standing. Relief flooded through Daniel as they pushed forward the last stretch, finally reaching the door of the old ranger station. Claire fumbled with the handle, her fingers stiff from the cold, until it finally gave way with a loud creak. Inside, the air was still and quiet, a sharp contrast to the storm raging outside. Dust covered old furniture, and the wooden walls creaked with the wind pressing against them. But it was shelter. It was safety. Daniel closed the door behind them, blocking out most of the wind, though the cold still lingered inside. Claire immediately began searching the small building. "There should be some supplies here," she said, moving toward an old cabinet in the corner. "My father used to stock these ranger stations. Blankets, candles, sometimes even food." Daniel used his flashlight to help her search, and within a few minutes, They found an old wool blanket, a box of matches, and a small stack of firewood near a stone fireplace. "We're not out of danger yet," Claire said, kneeling by the fireplace. "But this will help." Daniel knelt beside her, watching as she carefully arranged the wood and struck a match. The flame flickered weakly at first, then caught, slowly growing into a small fire that filled the room with warmth and a soft orange glow. For the first time since the car had slid off the road, Daniel felt his body begin to relax slightly. The fire crackled, pushing back the biting cold that had followed them inside. "Thank you," he said quietly, looking at Claire, "for knowing where to go. I don't know what we would have done otherwise." Claire gave a small smile, though her eyes still carried worry. "We're not safe yet," she reminded him. "The storm could last all night. We might be stuck here longer than we think." Daniel nodded, understanding the seriousness of their situation. Outside, the wind howled louder, rattling the windows of the old station as if trying to remind them just how close danger still was. They sat near the fire, wrapped in the single blanket they had found, sharing the small warmth it provided. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken worry about what the night ahead might bring. "Megan doesn't know we're stuck out here," Daniel said after a while, breaking the silence. "She's probably still at work, expecting me to text her later." Claire's expression shifted slightly at the mention of her daughter's name. "She'll worry," she said softly, "but there's nothing we can do until this storm passes, or someone finds us." Daniel studied her face for a moment, noticing something in her tone he couldn't quite place. "Worry, yes, but something else too, something more complicated." "Are you okay?" he asked carefully. Claire looked at him, then back at the fire, her expression unreadable in the flickering light. "I will be," she said quietly. "It's just, being out here, cut off from everything, it makes you think about things differently." Daniel wasn't sure what she meant, but before he could ask further, a gust of wind slammed against the station with such force that the entire structure seemed to shake. Both of them flinched, instinctively moving closer to the fire. "This storm isn't letting up," Claire said, her voice tense. "We need to make sure we have enough wood to keep the fire going through the night." Daniel nodded and stood up, grabbing the flashlight to check the small supply of firewood they had found. It wouldn't last more than a few hours if they weren't careful. "We'll need to ration it," he said, kneeling back down beside her. "Just enough to keep us from freezing, not more." Claire agreed, and together they settled into a careful rhythm, feeding just enough wood into the fire to maintain its warmth without exhausting their limited supply too quickly. As the hours passed, the storm outside grew fiercer, wind slamming against the walls, snow piling higher against the windows. Inside, the two of them sat close together, sharing quiet conversation to keep their minds off the danger surrounding them. But even as they talked, Daniel could sense something shifting in the air between them, a strange tension neither of them acknowledged directly, hidden beneath the surface of ordinary words. Night fell fully outside, swallowing the last traces of daylight. Trapped together in the small station, cut off from the world, Daniel realized they were about to face something far more complicated than just the storm outside.